Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. So get cozy and comfortable. All righty, Joe, you want to get us started?
Sounds good. My name is Joe Schmitz. I'm the staff attorney for Uniwile Credit Union, and we're very excited to partner with Legal Karma to offer trust and estate and will planning services. We feel like these products are a good value for our members, and they're an efficient opportunity to handle some issues with your estate planning process. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ben.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alrighty, well, again, welcome to today's presentation. I'm Melissa, and I'm part of the Legal Karma team here to talk to you about estate planning. And I'm joined by also my colleague Juana, and she'll be here to answer any questions that you might have during today's presentation. So, one of you just want to say a quick hi.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Alrighty, so just want to dive into a few housekeeping items. There is a Q&A box for any questions that you might have throughout today's presentation. So feel free to find that now. It should be located somewhere at the bottom of the Zoom window. And then we also recommend that you stay through the very end of the presentation. We'll be offering a discount that you can use towards an estate plan. So I just want to make sure that you take advantage of that. Other than that, I'm excited to share some high-level education on the basics of estate planning. And so today is an intro. So anything shared today shouldn't be taken, as legal advice, since Legal Karma isn't a law firm. And so this is very, it's meant to be a very high-level educational overview on estate planning, to hopefully help you choose a plan that's best for you and your loved ones. And so we'll go over today, we'll talk about why estate planning matters. We'll talk about what it is. We'll talk about the different types of documents that are available. And then finally, how to get started as well. All righty. And so to kick things off, I do want to start by setting some intentions first. And so, think about why we're here, think about why we're even thinking about estate planning. And that can help by answering a few questions, right? The first one would be think about who are the most important people in your life. And so that could be your family, that could be your friends, if you have extended family. For me, it's my family, it's my partner, and my two little nephews, Liam and Lucas. And then, yeah, that's that. Those are the people who are most important in my life. Another question would be, what are the things that matter most to you, right? What are the things that matter most to make a plan for? And so, a common one is heirlooms, so things that are passed down from generation to generation. For others, it could be financial security, so maybe your savings. And really, for me, that's my reason. Making sure that when I'm no longer here, everything that I had is passed on to the people that I want. And then another one is, what does legacy mean to you? So think about that. For Legal Karma, for us, it's, passing on values and ensuring that our life accomplishments and dreams continue to inspire our future generations ahead of us. So think about how you answered those questions, hold on to those answers, hold on to that intention, and we'll revisit those thoughts, throughout our presentation. And so here we have, we'll start with what is a comprehensive estate plan. And what that is, it's a series of documents that support your healthcare, support your financial and legal planning, legacy planning. And so these two first documents that you see here, the healthcare directive and the financial power of attorney, these are all for incapacity planning, right? And so that means somebody is still alive, but they're unable to make any healthcare or financial decisions on their own. And these documents, are great for maybe new 18-year-olds going off to college for the first time, or maybe somebody who has an upcoming surgery planned, or even for older individuals who, may start not being able to make those decisions on their own. And so in each of these documents, what you'd be doing is appointing a individual or multiple people, and they'll act on your behalf. And so this person or these people will work closely with physicians, should you not be able to make any medical decisions. And so in these documents, you can also, make detailed specific wishes. So maybe you'd want alternative medicine as the first resort versus Western medicine, or maybe your religion prohibits you from receiving blood transfusions. And so those specific wishes you can indicate in this document. And then your medical power of attorney or your healthcare directive at that point will be working with the physicians, just making sure that those wishes are carried out. And then in terms of the financial power of attorney, that's again the person or people who are managing your finances while you're incapacitated. So things like filing your taxes, paying your bills, or maybe even making investments on your behalf. And so it's really important that, you're putting people in place that you trust while you're still living. And so these two last documents here, we'll get more into detail in the next few slides, but these two documents are for legacy planning. And so really it's who is ultimately going to receive your assets when you're no longer here. Alrighty, so the next natural question is, what's a will? And a will is one of those most important, most common estate planning documents that we have, right? We've probably heard about a will. Everybody's probably heard about a will. But what a will does is that it allows you to say ultimately what happens to your assets when you're no longer here, right? It covers basic needs. You can designate a guardian for minor children or for caretakers for your pets. And then you'll be appointing an executor, and that person is the one that's going to be responsible for your affairs when you're no longer here, right? So managing your assets and distributing them to your beneficiaries. Wills do go through probate, and we'll talk about what probate is in a second. Another thing to know is that wills are only effective at death as it goes through probate. And so probate is a state judicial process. Sometimes we see it as it could be a little slow, it could be difficult, or even expensive. Some states do have, every state has a probate process, and it does vary from state to state. So some states maybe have a longer process than another might have, but typically it's anywhere between 6 to 12 months. And then there's also fees that come with those. And those also range from state to state. And that could be anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. And so after somebody passes away, the executor will take the will through probate court, and it'll go through proceedings. And then the state will take a portion, they'll take the fees, and then what's remaining is passed on to the beneficiaries. Debts are also settled in probate court. And so if there's a deceased individual that had any debts, those will be settled through probate, and then the executor will again take what's remaining and pass that on to the beneficiaries. Another thing to note is that when probate is closed, your will does become public record through the county recorder's office. And so some people can actually look up deceased individuals' wills through the county recorder. And so a lot of times people will look to avoid the probate process altogether. They don't want, those additional fees going to the state. They want to make sure that their loved ones receive those assets. And maybe they just don't want their documents to become public, right? And so that's when a trust would come in. And so there are many different types of trusts out there. The one that we'll be talking about today is a revocable living trust. And what that means is that you can change it throughout your lifetime. And that's, a really big benefit on its own, right? And so what a trust is it's a set of documents. And in those documents, you're appointing a trustee that manages the assets on the behalf of your beneficiary. And so you can think of it as a person who is the CEO over somebody's estate, right? And so trusts do many different things, but ultimately what they do is that they help you give more control over who's getting what, when they're getting it, and how they're getting it. And so a good example here would be if you have younger children, right? And so a will is going to say your kids receive your assets, but one thing that could happen is that maybe your kids are too young to receive such a large inheritance, and so then that's when a trust would come in. And so a trust would hold on to those assets until your child or your children are of a specific age, right? And so at that point, you can choose either a staggered distribution, and that would be like if, for example, you want to split up the inheritance over several different ages, or if you want to give the inheritance outright, then you can also select that option and then select the specific age when you would want them to receive that inheritance outright. And so during that time, before they reach that age or those ages, the funds are still made available for them, right? They cover things like college tuition, maybe the down payment on a new home. And so then that's when the successor trustee comes in, and that person is the one managing the beneficiary's inheritance until they're at that specific age. And so they can always take out funds to support the beneficiary. And then one thing to note is that the trust does remain a private document because it does not go through probate. And so therefore it stays a private document. So again, to recap what we said before, right? A will does become public through probate. And then a trust, since it's not going through probate, it remains private. And so the next question we're probably asking, right, is like, how does it avoid probate? Well, throughout one's lifetime, you're moving your assets into the name of the trust. And so think of it as, think of the trust as a cookie jar. And a cookie jar is only a jar unless you put cookies inside the jar. So think about that very similar to a trust, right? So a trust is essentially a will unless you put your assets into the trust, right? And so instead of listing perhaps your name on your home on the deed, you can change it so it says the name of your trust on the deed instead. And so now the home is part of the trust, and then it follows any of the rules that we've specified, right? And so it avoids going through probate. And this process, we provide a really helpful guide to walk you through the whole trust funding process. And one thing to note is that the trust funding process can happen again through one's lifetime. So it's not something that happens immediately. It can occur through your lifetime. Alrighty, so we'll recap these two side by side here. So a will is a very simple document. It covers basic needs. A trust gives you more control and flexibility over, again, who's getting what, when, and how. In a will, you're appointing an executor, and in a trust, you're appointing what's called a successor trustee. And then again, a will does go through probate, and then the trust avoids probate. In a will, you're nominating guardians for your minor children, caretakers for your pets, and that is also included in the trust. And in the will, it distributes your assets, and so you're saying who's getting what. And then after closing probate, your assets are distributed to your beneficiaries. A will, again, is effective only at death, whereas in a trust, it's effective throughout your lifetime, so it can support incapacity. Alrighty, so one thing to note, right, that it's not a question about a will versus a trust. They actually work together as a part of an estate plan. So all estate plans need a will, but not all estate plans need a trust. So we can talk about, the reasons why you would want to add a trust, and some of those may include, having younger children. So thinking about that inheritance management. So for example, I have two nephews. They're all under the age of 5, right? And so as far as I know, and as far as how financially responsible they'll be when they grow up, hopefully they're great. But before then, a trust would be a really good idea to put in place. Having someone, that I trust manage their assets until they're old enough to receive those. And so think about that for you, right? It might be that you have complex family dynamics, that it's a blended marriage or even a second marriage. And so that's also a good idea to create a trust. But maybe possibly you just overall want to avoid probate and keep your documents private as well. Again, a will does become public record after somebody passes. And then finally, incapacity planning. So if you have any additional incapacity planning needs, a trust again is effective throughout your lifetime. So that would be a good reason to choose a trust. And so hopefully these differences, help make a decision as to maybe what plan is best to choose, right? The will or the trust. Pardon me. All right, so we'll go over some misconceptions here. One of the big ones is that a lot of people think that only the wealthy need an estate plan, but really anybody above the age of 18 needs a estate plan, right? Doesn't matter if you think about, at some point you might have said, I don't have a lot of money, I don't need an estate plan. But again, anybody over the age of 18 will need an estate plan. And whether that's for wanting to put some documents in place for incapacity, or that power of attorney, the healthcare directive are great to have in place in case of an emergency. So again, anybody over 18 should really think about creating some type of estate planning. The second one here is, well, my family already knows what I want. And this could be true for the most part, but from firsthand experience, there are so many different questions that might come up when somebody passes away that you're left to decide on. What did this person want? Can't remember. And you're already probably going through the grieving process. And so it adds an additional layer of complexity and even maybe a burden. And so it would just be nice to have those marching orders documented and in place for that. So not to mention also, without having an estate plan, your assets have to go through probate. And so that probate process could be even more complicated, right? It creates more confusion. It can create delays. It could be dragged on. And so a lot of times there could be family conflict or even court battles. And so just really putting your wishes in place can go a long way for your loved ones. And so another one is that, a lot of people say that it's too complicated, it's too expensive. But it could actually be even more complicated and expensive not having a plan in place. And what we've done is, we've made it easy, intuitive, and we have people like Juana here to help you along the way. And, we've partnered with UniYO to create a way to make that accessible and affordable for you, right? And so you could literally do this process from the comfort of your home after dinner tonight. And the packages start out at a really great price. And so the last one here is that, we can do it later. And there's a lot of things that we might have put at the bottom of our life's to-do list. And estate planning is probably, at the bottom there. And it's been there for a while. But the truth is that we don't know when we're going to pass in our lifetime. We just know that it's going to happen at some point. So really prioritizing an estate and getting it done, it's like a no-brainer, right? The whole process takes about maybe 20 to 45 minutes, give or take. And then again, you can do it from the comfort of your home. And so, think about these myths and that, we're here to help. These are some of the benefits of having the estate plan, right? And so removing guesswork for your family. So they're not having to go through screening processes and thinking about, well, what did Melissa want? Well, I can't remember. I have no idea. So making sure that you're specifying your wishes while you're here is important. And it's a really great benefit for your family. Nominating, guardians for your kids or even your pets if you have pets. I know that our family, my brother has a cat. Her name is Lena. And we think of her as part of the family. We're always thinking about her when we go on vacations and stuff like that. And so A lot of us think of our pets as children as well. So just making sure that we have a plan in place for guardians of both our kids, our family members. You're also appointing here trusted individuals, right? Somebody who you really trust to act on your behalf for your healthcare wishes or your financial wishes, should you become incapacitated. So that's another benefit. And then you're also protecting your assets, avoiding probate and keeping things private. And lastly, here is, thinking about leaving the legacy that you intended, the way that you intended, right? And so we can return back to the intentions that we were thinking about earlier at the beginning of this presentation, right? Your internal why. Why are you here today? What are the things that matter most in your life? Who are the people that matter most? And what is the legacy that you truly want to leave behind? And so with that plan in place, you're really creating an additional peace of mind. And really that's the spirit of estate planning, right? Through Uniwyo. And so some people are maybe thinking, right, well, Mel, if I have a plan, do I need to update it? Or even the question might be is like, when would I even think about creating an estate plan? And so an estate plan, they're not made or designed or even intended to be a one and done. It's meant to be updated throughout your lifetime. So some of the reasons why you might consider creating or even updating your document is if there's a marriage, maybe you just got married, or maybe you're going or went through a divorce, or maybe there was a birth in the family or somebody passed away in your family. And so all of those warrant great life changes or stages. And so creating or updating your documents would be a good time for that. Another one could be financial change, right? So maybe you yourself came across an inheritance and you want to plan for that. And another one could be maybe wanting to change your preferences. So maybe at one point early on, you had created your estate planning documents and your kids were little and you named guardians for them. And then now they're adults, they're in college, they don't need guardians anymore. And so now what you want to do is change it so that way your kids are your executor or your trustee or your power of attorney. And so that's another great time to change that preference. And then another one could be maybe you have a charity or a religious organization that is very near and dear to your heart, and you want to leave them a tangible item, a monetary gift. And so then that would be something you detail in these documents as well. And so these are all really great, things that you can do or reasons why you can create or update your documents. But a good rule of thumb is to at least revisit your documents every 3 to 5 years. Laws do change and so do our lives. And so at least reviewing them and making sure that everything is correct. I would say, though, that estate planning laws don't change that often, but it's just always a good idea to make sure that you review them at the very least. Another reason you'd want to update your estate plan could be if you're moving from state to state. And so maybe you relocated and you created initially your documents in one state, but now you live in another one. Every state does have different probate laws. And so it's really a good idea to update them or just check in and see if you need to update those. So I did want to point out, though, if you're, if that something were to happen to you and you're out of state documents, you have out of state documents, they're still legally binding. They would just have to probably go through some type of probate process at that point. All right. And so we'll talk about the benefits of, using the estate planning services that we have, right? And so our estate planning services is budget friendly. And so there's always going to be it's always going to be clear and upfront pricing. There's never going to be any types of surprises coming up. It's also really easy to use. So we have a really helpful quiz in the beginning when you sign up through your credit union. And so you just fill out the quiz. And if you're unsure which plan, may be the best for you and your family, it would make you a recommendation. And so what you can do is take a look at that recommendation. you can maybe choose to move forward with that recommendation, or you can choose any of the other plans available to you. Another reason is that we have unlimited support. And so whether you're still in the consideration phase or you're unsure if this is a plan that you want to move forward with, or if you're just seeking out anything else, our team here is here to help. And again, we really just want to make sure that you have all the answers that makes you feel confident in the decision that you're making for yourself and for your family. And so even if this isn't, the path that you want to choose, we just want to make sure that that decision you made in confidence. And so again, we're here, and whether you just have a bunch of questions or you do want to move forward, we're here to help with that. Did want to show you guys, pardon me, all of the different plans that are available. And so 2 different plans here that I want to point out. It's the will package and the trust package. They both include a single or joint pricing, and the joint is for couples, ready? And so all of these, you have the ability to split into 4 different interest-free payments. And then all of those also include the unlimited support with our team. And so getting a hold of our support team, you can either schedule an appointment with us, and that link we'll provide on the next slide so you have it, but you can also find it and in the website for your credit union under the UniYO website. You can also call our support team. And so if you're going through the process and you need some answers, you can feel free to call this direct line here. And then we also do have chat support. So if you're going through the process and you prefer to chat with somebody on the site while you're going through the process, we're there to help you as well. And then all of the support is included in both English and Spanish. And so we can speak with you in the language that you feel more comfortable in. Alrighty, and so this is almost the last part of the presentation. We've talked about the why, we've talked about the what's, we've talked about the differences, and now we'll talk about how the process works. And so what you'll do is you'll log into the estate planning portal through the UniYO website. You'll take a quick quiz, 2-minute quiz, and it'll match you with that recommended package. You can enter the promo code that I'll share with you on the next slide, and so that way you can receive your discount. And then from there, you'll answer a whole bunch of different questions, and those take about the 20 to 45 minutes, right? And then once you're done with that questionnaire and you've solidified your answers, then you'll submit your documents for review. And then it'll take our team about 1 or 2 weeks to review everything, and we'll send them back over to you. And then your email will say, hey, your documents are ready for print. And what you'll do is that you'll download them, you'll print them, and then what you want to do next is get them notarized. So you'll need them notarized, and you'll have to have 2 witnesses with you. We do provide signing instructions on the first page of every document. And so you'll have that guidance there. But you do need your documents notarized. Once they're notarized, they're legally binding, right? And so that's very important. After that, then you'll want to keep them in a safe place and then let your loved ones know where they're at in case of an emergency. But that essentially is the process. Alrighty, and so that wraps up our presentation for today. You are welcome to drop any other questions on the Q&A box if you have any other questions. For everybody that attended today, UniYO is offering a 40% discount here. And so this applies to any of the packages, whether it's a will or a trust, single or joint, it's 40% off. And so again, we highly encourage you to take advantage of this discount. It is offered for just a limited time only, so make sure that you take advantage of it. And then if you do want to speak to anybody or have any specific questions, you want to speak to somebody on the phone, you're welcome to schedule some time with our team. Those appointments are free, so you can make an appointment. To do so, you can use your phone camera now to scan the QR code on the screen, and it'll take you to the link where you can make an appointment with our team. Alrighty, that concludes it. Joe, if you want to close this out.
Yeah, thanks for that awesome presentation, Melissa. Um, as Melissa said, I was offering the discount, and the information is on the screen there. We're really excited about these products. I'd also like to remind you, if you are updating your estate planning process, your estate plan in any manner, make sure and check your beneficiaries as well, like on all your accounts, like your IRAs, your 401ks. You wouldn't want anything to kind of contradict your new estate plan, so just it's always a good time to make sure your beneficiaries on all your accounts are all updated as well. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Awesome. Juana, if you have any two questions that we want to cover before we log off today.
Of course, there was a really good question that came in regards to the discount. The prices being reflected on the slides that doesn't reflect the 40%, but once you do enter that code in checkout, that will reflect the pricing that you'll pay and that will reflect the 40%. Another good question that came up was if everything had to be completed first and then to take advantage of that 40%, that's not the case. You can always secure the 40% discount if you wanted to secure that, and then you can always just fill out the information later on. So that part you can do during your own time.
All right. Awesome, Juana. Thank you so much for that. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all took something away from today's presentation and that, we're here to help you out, anything that you might need. So hopefully we're here to help and make sure that you feel confident in your estate planning journey. Again, thank you, UniYO, and the members who attended today. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.